Hi everyone. So it's been a long time since I've made any videos, and to be honest, I've just been a bit busy. We moved house, been refurbishing. One of those rooms being refurbished is the room I'm in now. This is my game room. This end of the room's not too bad. That side is still a bit of a mess, needs sorting out. But yeah, I've missed making videos. And I was thinking about like what, in terms of like sort of my collection or interests, could I talk about that at least provide some interest? And that's really around controllers. I've got lots of weird and wonderful controllers, lots of Japanese imports for all sorts of different systems, whether that's music controllers, racing controllers, mech controllers, whatever it is. I've got a lot of the sort of esoteric controllers that may have only supported a small number of games. And so I thought I'd do a bit of a series featuring lots of those different controllers. And so the first one, we're going to talk about the NeGcon, not NeGcon. For a long time I kind of called it the NeGcon because it's got a big G in the middle, but it's actually the NeGcon, and we've got one right here. And so when I first saw this controller, I thought, what the hell is that? Because what this has is this twisting axis in the middle, and my gut feeling was, well, this is going to be terrible to play with, but people online talk about it and actually hold it in really high regard, and so I got one, tried it out. I was like, oh my god, this is great. For general car racing games, I would still prefer to use a wheel, but if you don't have space for a wheel, then the NeGcon really fills that gap. But for games that are racing games, but maybe a wheel wouldn't have been like the right controller to use, so bike games, futuristic races, things of that sort. Well, who's to say that a NeGcon wouldn't be appropriate for those? The origins of this, the actual name, NeGcon, comes from the Japanese Nejiro, which means to twist. And this controller came out in 1995. Which, if we think back then, what was available in 1995? The PlayStation launch, and the NeGcon came out for the original PlayStation. In 1995, there was the classic kind of digital controller. So if you were playing a racing game, you'd be using a D-pad. But for anything that's more than a very basic arcade racer, you really need the analog control. And with things like Gran Turismo in the works, or I mean for Namco, who released this, it was really to support Ridge Racer and their other kind of racing games within their lineup. So they wanted to deliver a kind of analog experience to the home user. And we think in 1995, well, the N64 controller hadn't come out, the Saturn 3D control pad hadn't come out. Those both came out in 1996. The Sony analog controllers, so the original analog joystick, the big kind of two-handed controller, didn't come out until 97, something like that, maybe 96. And that was before the dual analog controller, the dual shock. So really this was sort of the first sort of easily available foray into kind of analog controllers for mainstream systems. I guess there was the Saturn arcade racing one. I'm not sure which year that came out, but I mean, I'm not sure there was even racing wheels for the PlayStation available at this point. I know that some of the wheels that came out actually used the protocols that Namco developed for the NeGcon. Namco released a series of controllers, and they're all pretty decent, to be honest. The NeGcon was the first, and they released 5 controllers for the PlayStation. We'll probably cover some of those in future episodes. And they released 2 further controllers for the PlayStation 2. And so the NeGcon is the MPC 101, and they follow that 10X nomenclature. In terms of its actual usage, I'm not going to cover what it was designed to be used for and what it supported on the PlayStation and PlayStation 2. Go and Google NeGcon compatibility, and you'll find lists of those games, and you'll find plenty of videos talking about that. What I kind of like to do is think about okay, well, there's this interesting controller. It was released on this system. Well, what else could we do with it? You know, can we find some way of adapting its input to other systems, ideally converting to USB, and then we can support it on PC and emulators. And so the NeGcon is supported by a number of USB adapters. So I've got a few here. So this one here is the Mayflash. It supports N64, Saturn, and PlayStation. That's the NeGcon plugged in right now. This one works well with the NeGcon. It converts all of the various axes, and we'll talk about the various inputs that this controller do. Because not only does it have the twist, but it also has other analog, 4 other analog buttons actually. Another converter this one works with. I don't know where this is from. I acquired it in like a bundle of controllers, but it looks like an original Xbox, and for that reason, I think it's great. It supports the original PlayStation, and it outputs to 3 inputs actually: USB, original Xbox, and GameCube. But it supports the NeGcon as well. The issue with the NeGcon is because it's got so many analog inputs, you really need to be able to have some sort of way of remapping those inputs. If you can't remap them, then it's going to probably assign the wrong analog input to the wrong expected input in terms of that controller. Adapters that don't work, if you've got one of these really generic, like £1 off of AliExpress type adapters, that does not support the NeGcon. So it will support like standard PlayStation controllers, but not the NeGcon, that has a slightly different sort of set of inputs. So what we'll do now is I'll fire up Gamepad Tester from hardwaretester.com, and we'll have a little look at some of the inputs that the controller has. Okay, so we've got it hooked up via that Mayflash adapter. So firstly, the twisting. So we see axis 2 basically going up and down. So that's basically our steering axis. On the front here, we've got 2 analog buttons. But you see by default here, these axes are put as, they're kind of starting at one end and going through to the other. The middle position is actually with the button halfway depressed. So when we remap the controllers, sometimes this makes or causes an issue. Some emulators really don't care, but RetroArch is a little bit fiddly to set that up. Same with the other buttons. So these are labelled 1 and 2. 2 just regular buttons here. So button 1 in this case, button 0. We're going to have 2 analog shoulder buttons. So we see this axis 1. This particular controller doesn't seem to go out all the way. So we'll open it up in a bit and see if we can see why that's happening, see if we can fix it. This other one, on a PlayStation, this would be an analog axis, but you see on here we're just getting a button press. So that's to do with the adapter and the number of axes being registered. Got a start button here. So there's no select button on this controller for like a normal PlayStation controller, and then we've got a regular D-pad. So we've got the analog face buttons there, so that's good for like an accelerator or a brake, so we can get analog behavior with those rather than just binary input. So what I'm going to do is get this set up, probably in RetroArch initially, and show some games that I think really work with this controller. So our first game is a bike game, and that's Hang On from Sega, released in 1985. So with the NeGcon, basically you've got that analog control, and with a bike, it's not a wheel, is it? So you can get this kind of lean in, going both ways. And you see in these kind of sweep and bends, we can just really finely tune those controls. There we go. So yeah, with a proper control system like with the NeGcon, it makes this game so much more enjoyable to play. Yep. So yeah, so bike games would be, you know, one class of games I would really recommend with the NeGcon. As I say, when you twist, you also get kind of a bit of a lean in each direction. So it's a bit like turning the handlebars, or moving the handlebars and leaning the bike. But yeah, this was the first super scalar game from Sega, 1985, and yeah, I really like it. It's good fun. Oh, clipped one of the other riders. Whoa. But yeah, I mean, with digital controls, this game just doesn't work. You're constantly, you know, adding and taking off steer in each direction. You can't give it that the sort of precise amount of turning that you need for this game. So yeah, I would highly recommend anyone with a NeGcon to fire this up, or the sequel, Super Hang On. But if anything, I actually kind of prefer this one. It's got a kind of purity to it. Yeah. See there, able to kind of just finally carve our way through the other bikes. Nice. Yeah, because this game's no, we got clipped. Yeah, this game's also, as you get a bit further, it's fairly brutal. You'll probably find, yeah, there we go. So yeah, that was the first game. As I say, I really like it. I think it works absolutely great with the NeGcon. So yeah, on to the next game. So the next genre of game we've got is the futuristic high-speed racer. So here we've got F-Zero GX on the Nintendo GameCube, and we've got the twist, you know, mapped to the steering. Shoulder buttons mapped to the kind of air brake in each direction. Accelerate mapped to, what is that button? Oh, it is A. And then it's tricky because you do need up and down for this. So I've got it mapped to the two analog buttons here. So you see we can go up and down, which makes it tricky. If you're accelerating, you then can't really go up and down, which when you go off a jump, you want to be able to control that. So it's not perfect, but as we get started, we'll see that the really makes up for it with the steering. I mean, the NeGcon was kind of known as the wipeout controller, being particularly good for that. I had F-Zero GX back in the day. One of the things that makes it difficult is the sensitivity on the stick. You don't have the level of precision with that thumbstick that you kind of need to play this game well. So yeah, you can see with just, you know, either very small movements or a little bit more, and we can turn quickly. So we're emulating this here. This is on the Dolphin emulator. I tried getting this working with real hardware. The issue is that the axes map to the wrong ones. So the analog buttons or the shoulder buttons map to the steering. The whole thing just didn't work. And to get it to adapt to the GameCube, I tried the original Xbox adapter that I showed before, I think I also had a sort of chain of PlayStation to USB, USB to GameCube adapter, and yeah, just couldn't get it kind of mapped how I wanted it. But you can see here that the NeGcon really provides super precise control, and in a game like this, which is kind of like you need both twitchiness and sort of smoothness, it's perfect for that. So yeah, this genre is kind of not that big anymore, but around this kind of time, you know, around the year 2000-ish, I guess, plus minus a few, these futuristic racers were huge. And I loved F-Zero on the N64, loved it on the GameCube, and playing it in a completely different way. Yeah, brings back memories and gives new experiences too. So yeah, another one I'd recommend. So yeah, next up I've got a third genre of game to demonstrate. Okay, so the third genre of games is, I guess, kind of anything kind of water-based boat racing games. So we're still on the GameCube. We've got Wave Race Blue Storm here. So another game which requires, you know, some fairly sort of precise controls, but also doesn't use a wheel, right? So now the twisting, you know, sort of simulates the leaning of the jet ski. This is actually the first game I got on the GameCube. It was, I think it was one of the launch games. We'll have a go here. I remember I always used to use this guy, Nigel Carver, because he maxes out the manoeuvring, and for the races, being able to get around the buoys, as the commentator will say, is key. Yeah, he's supposed to be British as well, isn't he? You've got the British kind of pit crew. So yeah, you get a turbo off the start, but I'm not going to use it yet. So yeah, the steering is very sensitive, which is where the NeGcon really helps. But again, a bit like F-Zero, you do have that issue of being able to have like an up and down analog axis, which because I think you can, when you go over jumps, you can do like dives underwater. Oh no! Come on. Oh no. We were doing so well. Use the boost too quickly. Okay. There we are, third. Maybe, we'll see. Oh, it reminds me this game is really tricky. This is supposed to be the sort of easiest track, but yeah, that fine controlling where we do need to steer. Hey, we won. So yeah, the NeGcon works great with this. Really good game if you've not played it. Lovely graphics, lovely water effects. Yeah, shame that the Wave Race series has basically been abandoned by Nintendo, but the GameCube has a good version now. I mean, this would work with the N64 version too. So yeah, so we've had three different genres of game there. Bike games, futuristic racers, and now kind of water-based racing games. All work really well with the NeGcon. So now I mentioned that the trigger has a little bit of an issue. At least I think it's got an issue. You can never quite tell whether the thing's supposed to max out, but I have had other ones and I think they do max out. But either way, what we'll do, I've never taken one of these apart. We'll open up and we'll see kind of how it works inside. Okay, so I thought it might be interesting to open the controller up. So take the NeGcon. I've already taken the screws off the back to make it easier. It's not that interesting seeing me do some unscrewing. So yeah, let's see what's inside and how it works. Okay, that's come off quite easily. See, I've never opened one of these before, so quite unsure what I will find. And the thing about things like this, especially when they've got complicated mechanisms inside, is you run the risk of them coming apart but being very difficult to put back together. So straight away, this side just pops off. We can see the springs there, and those are the analog buttons on the the analog buttons on the front, and they're basically just springs that sit in those little raised bits on the other side of the controller. And I see. You see the way they go in and out there? They're basically turning a gear as they go in and out. So that's really clever. Look at that. Nice. And then the shoulder button that was on there, that is just a click. So when we were registering not an analog axis and we had a button, it's because there it just presses that button there. This button operates in the exact same way, rotates the gear there that controls the axis, and then in the middle we see we've got the big twisting mechanism. Let's see if this comes apart further. So if I just pull that down, so each half sits in these grooves, and I assume there's grooves on that side as well. I'll put that there just so it's in shot. So you can see the grooves there. So that sits in there. So that rotates relative to this one. This bit though looks much trickier to get apart. Comes apart from the sides. Let's just see if there's a screw or anything. Can't see anything. Let's use a little bit of force and see if there's just a clip that just needs to release. It's mostly coming apart. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's the other half of the controller off. We've got the back of the D-pad, I guess. There's a central pin, I guess, of the D-pad. Just gets pressed against that peg there, and then we can see inside here. So here we've got that exact same. So this is an analog axis rather than the other side. I wonder if the reason we weren't getting a full range of motion on the controller is maybe maybe it skipped a step on the gear, so that when we go to maximum, like pressing down, it kind of is clicking there as well, which also suggests that maybe it's not engaging that gear properly. So I don't think I'll do this on camera, but I will have a fiddle with that and see if maybe I can just move it along one gear so that when it's fully depressed, it hits that 100% threshold, and when it's off, it's fully off. Whereas at the moment, I think it's slightly on and not fully, slightly on and not fully engaging when it does depress. Let's have a look at this mechanism though. Yeah, look. So it might be hard to see that on camera, but there's two gears there. So as we rotate the other side of the controller, the central gear rotates. I think it's hard to know. I can't quite see what's behind this bit of plastic, and I'm kind of slightly reticent to fully take that apart. I think that bit is connected to this, and that's screwed on there. Because this is set up quite carefully, I don't want to like unseat the gears and then kind of reseat them so they're offset and so that like the middle isn't straight and all that sort of stuff. But we can see kind of how it works. That as the controller rotates, oh no, that's just that slipping, I think. So there must be something that it engages with. So you see there's some notches in the plastic here. There must be some notches on the other side. I can kind of see there's something on the other side there, and yeah, that's how it works. So those notches fit into protrusions on the case, and that allows it to turn. And when it's held together, it can't slip out. So that enables this part of the controller to control that disc. And that then must be connected to that gear. That gear turns that gear, so we've got a little bit of it probably just adjusts, means that the rotary encoder, maybe is it, can so that the amount of movement we've got relative to the range of motion that can accept is kind of acceptable. I assume that the rotary encoder is then inside, and then those wires, I think, just come through the center of that gear. That gear has a hole in the middle that goes through and then is connected to the PCB. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that each of these analog axes are hooked up to these small, as I say, I assume kind of rotary encoders, so you can detect the rotation, and that turns it. That's turning the linear motion into a rotary one. So yeah, kind of cool. So yeah, I'm going to have a little fiddle with this and see if I can adjust where it's seated, so that maybe we can extend that range of motion, so I can get a max out when it's fully depressed. But yeah, pretty interesting one. So yeah, I will do this, come back, and we'll wrap this up. Yeah, so that's the NeGcon. In terms of trying to fix that issue, and I can say that actually now that full analog axis, just opening it up, and it must have maybe just skipped a step from the opening. That axis now goes from 0 to max. So if anyone has one of these controllers and finds that shoulder button isn't giving them the full kind of 0 to 1 movement on that analog axis, open it up and just allow it. I think it probably just reseats itself. I think there's probably when you take the pressure off, the rotary encoder can maybe just reset to a minimum, or maybe it was that full depress that I did without the pressure of the case on it that just allowed it just to click back into place. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that actually. That it literally didn't really take anything to fix that issue, just opening the controller up, which took 5 minutes. But yeah, so that's the NeGcon. I think it's a hidden gem almost of a controller, and really a pioneer in the kind of bringing of analog axes to home consoles. As I say, prior to it, there just wasn't really much at all that could deliver a kind of racing experience in the home, and to provide, what is it, like 4 analog axes in a single controller without any thumbsticks is quite incredible. And since, there hasn't really been anything like it either. So if you want to experience it, really getting an original controller, we've seen ways that we can adapt those original controllers to USB and then get recognized by a PC, and then it opens up for playing all sorts of games via emulation or kind of native PC games. We had a look at a few games, so we looked at bike games, futuristic racing games, and we looked at Wave Race, a kind of water-based game. If there are games you would like me to see play with the NeGcon, just suggest them. I'm sure there are things that I've not even thought of playing that could work really well with that controller. So, would really appreciate hearing the suggestions, and would generally really appreciate feedback on the kind of format. My intention is to maybe do a of these with some of the various weird and wacky controllers that I've got a few thoughts of what I could do, but if there are controllers you'd really like to see, just let me know. So yeah, with that we'll wrap up. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. I mean, if you've got this far, you know, you've been reasonably committed, and really appreciate that. So wishing you all well, and be back for the next one. See ya.